I'd like to call the Jackson County Board of Commissioners meeting to order. We'll begin the meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance and the invocation by Commissioner Phil Duckham. All rise. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Lord, we pray tonight to you for wisdom, guidance. We pray to you tonight for wisdom and guidance. We're taking on a couple of contentious and tough issues tonight. We all want the same outcome, and just different ways to get there, I guess. We're hoping you feed us the best way. Protect everybody on their way home tonight, and God bless America. Amen. Amen.
Madam Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Commissioner Bear.
Present.
Commissioner Walls.
Here.
Commissioner Kennedy.
Here.
Commissioner Duckham.
Here.
Commissioner Pileski.
Here.
Commissioner Willis.
Here.
Commissioner Williams.
Present.
Commissioner Snell.
Here.
Chairman Shotwell.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Entertain a motion to approve the agenda? We have a motion and support. Any additions? Deletions? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? We have no awards or recognition to come before the board. Is there any communications or petitions that you'd like to present to the Board of Commissioners? Please walk up and set it in front of the clerk. Seeing none, we have no special orders nor public hearings. We've arrived at the first opportunity for public comment. Public comment guidelines. Each individual will state their name. They will have 3 minutes to address the board. You may only address the board once under public comment opportunity and may not yield your time to others. Board members will not debate nor answer questions at this time. Public comment is now open.
Would you push the green button, please? Or the button in front of you? There you go.
Thank you. Thank you, Fred.
Thank you. My name is Fred Trexler. I'm a precinct delegate in Summit Township. The preamble to the Constitution of the State of Michigan states, quote, "We, the people of the state of Michigan, grateful to Almighty God for the blessings of freedom and earnestly desiring to secure these blessings undiminished to ourselves and to our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution." And the Constitution states that the government is instituted for the equal benefit, security, and protection of the people. We depend on our Jackson County government to provide for protection by hiring a sheriff and deputies. The state requires each county to have a jail for criminals awaiting trial. The operating expense for the jail should be part of the county budget, which is set by our commissioners. However, because in the past, the operating expense for the jail was made part of the millage to build the new jail on Chanter Road, and that tax has expired, we had hoped the voters would pass a small 0.25 mil tax to operate the jail. That did not pass. The original 6 mils for the county would be enough to operate the jail and fully staff the sheriff's department. But the 1978 Headley Amendment, which is Article 9, Section 31 of the Constitution, has rolled back the tax to about 5.1 mils as property tax assessments have increased. The 1994 Proposal A limits the growth of taxable value to the lesser of inflation rate, or 5%. Due to the reduction in property values during the recent recession, the Headley Amendment and Proposition A have prevented the county from catching up in revenue. We need a Headley override to allow the county budget to provide for the sheriff's department
30 seconds.
to operate the jail and respond on the road to 9/11 calls. That will take time and persuasion. In the meantime, since the voters did not approve the millage, let's take money from other budgets that the voters like and other services and provide for the sheriff's budget so he can do the best with what is.
You're out of time, Fred. Thank you.
Rosemary Tanner. Wow, $900,000, that's a lot of dollars. 973 votes. Wow, the millage lost by that number. Well, with that out of the way, let's talk about why businesses want to always go after the lowest hanging fruit. As a member of healthcare for 53 years, I went through many budget cuts for nurses. Government, law enforcement, nursing, that seems counterintuitive to cutting off your nose to spite your face. No matter what you call it, it will be defunding the police. Budget cuts, staff cuts, it's defunding, excuse me. You are elected officials chosen to represent the public. Your first priority is number 1, public safety. Number 2 is public health. Number 3 is infrastructure, and number 4 is governance. Every penny must be reviewed. Public safety is a need, not a want. Make your choices wisely.
Good evening, Christy Davis. I was checking out some other news reports other people have been talking about, and some other counties have also recently had to do some law enforcement cutbacks. Hillsdale, which is I'm sure we all know the map of Michigan, but I must say it anyways. Hillsdale, which is right to the south of us, has cut. If we get cut, then there's a straight shot to Eaton. Then there are 2 counties in between to get right up to Isabella. And that is, I don't know about all the other counties statewide, but that is 4 counties fairly close together with the potential of a lot of layoffs. And we're kind of in the middle. I know they're trying to get with the city with the 100 homes and all the other apartment buildings and complexes that are going in. We're trying to entice more residents, especially residents that are working. It seems like they're trying to entice residents from that are working in Ann Arbor and other cities. And I'm not sure why on earth we would want to entice more people to come here and to live here if we are cutting law enforcement. One of the big things for, responsibilities for commissioners and stuff is infrastructure, and law enforcement is considered a soft infrastructure. So I think it's important. I think it's just a really important thing to think about. Just because people voted no, or some people didn't vote yes or no, it doesn't mean that they knew what they were or were not voting for, against, or not at all. And I think it shows a lot for the amount of us that have come consistently to a lot of meetings and consistently support our law enforcement. I think it says a lot about all of us who come to these meetings and know other people are thinking in your heads, and we know you're frustrated. But when shots are fired in my neighborhood, I'm not calling any of you. I'm calling 911. And a lot of stuff happens at night. I know a lot of stuff happens in the day too. I live in the city. But a lot of stuff happens at night. And I think that's a really
30
big
seconds,
thing.
ma'am.
Thank you. I think that's a big thing we need to realize is we're gonna lose a lot of safety. So that's that. But also my other thought on that, well, it might be loosely, is seatbelt law. Nobody really wants the seatbelt law, but it does save lives.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good evening. My name is Stacy Brezak. As a business owner in Summit Township and a resident of Rives Junction, the thought of not having the sheriff department on patrol is alarming. Every member of this board and your constituents benefits from the sheriff department in one way or another. Since the first millage didn't pass, and they put another millage out, which I didn't see any advertising of the second millage. I'm not understanding how anyone could tell the difference between the first millage and the second millage. So that didn't pass. The citizens of Jackson have been taxed until we're completely drained. With the rising cost of gas, food, and electricity, not to mention that our property taxes, our water rates have also increased. My water bill in Summit Township will increase at least 50% in the next 5 years. This is a flat rate. There's no way for me to save money or conserve any water. I must now have to take money from other projects of my business and put it into the water increase. I believe the board also has the ability to do the same. If you have to take some from your general funds, then do so. If you have to take some from your rainy day funds, please consider it, because I certainly will have to scrape to get water for my business in the next 5 years. Thank you.
Please step to the microphone and state your name, sir.
Hi, my name is Nicholas Thurston. I live here in Jackson, Michigan. I live in the city. I just wanted to sort of echo some of the concerns that people have. The last election, I think, one of the biggest driving factors for a Republican majority was to take government spending more seriously and to take an honest look at the books right now and how we're spending our money, what we're getting out of it, where it's going, and who it's going to. I don't know if you guys have seen the news. The Kamala Harris campaign spent over $1 billion. At the end of their campaign, $20 million short. Oh, sorry, it's not funny, but $20 million in debt because they spent a bunch of money on throwing parties with celebrities, Hollywood celebrities, and music concerts and stuff. And people voted against the runaway spending, and it's come to bite them because of what they were doing. That's not the appropriate way to run an American government. It's not what we need here in Jackson. It's not what we want from Michigan as well. And I live in the city. I see the runaway spending. I see the raises in taxes. I see a cost of living increase of 10, 20, 30% in some years. And it hits people's pocketbooks. And when that happens, they have a right to be mad. They should be upset. But a lot of it, it starts here. We trust you guys to take things seriously. And, Earl Pulaski, I think the world of you. When I was younger, you gave me some guidance on something I thought was an entrepreneurship opportunity and really turned out to be very misleadingly worded. And some of my friends made business decisions that, they weren't setting money aside for taxes. And they, thought they were making all this extra money, but really it was that their employer, their, contract, wasn't taking the tax out of the checks, and they would owe that later. So I know for a fact you're a professional. You understand the books better than anybody does in Michigan, and we trust you guys. I see local business owners. The menus are changing on stuff. People are worried about wages. There's been a lot of changes and stuff. They're not hiring as many people. They might be doing some layoffs or some cuts here and there. But really, take this stuff seriously. People aren't complaining for no reason. And I think, in the future of our country, it's important that we take a more responsible approach to how we're spending the money. And
30 seconds, sir.
yeah, thank you. But it's critically important to the future. If we want another 100 years of Michigan, another 100 years of Jackson County, another 100 years of the city, and we need to across the country, we need everybody to be taking this stuff seriously. That's why you guys were elected. Thank you so much for your time, and good luck to you guys, and congratulations on the re-elections. Thanks, bye.
Yeah, my name's Bruce Giller. I live in the city and I have a business in the city. And I know you guys have some tough decisions to make. I've recently sent an email to a few of you guys that we have some shoddy work going on in Grass Lake that you guys claim to have no responsibility over. But the drain commissioner actually issued a stop work on this project. And Kelly went out and verified that stop work permit, and yet weeks later, they're still doing construction. So as I understand it, if this, they're not answering the FOIA that was also submitted over weeks ago for answers on what's going on there. And so, if this is the way we're gonna do work, maybe that's where we could save a little money. So I'm just saying, you guys claim that it wasn't in your ballpark, but it's your drain commissioner that issued the stop work, and it's your people that verified that, and for some reason, weeks have gone by and it hasn't been issued. So I think if that's the way business goes, why have them on the payroll? So I would appreciate some sort of feedback on that from my email I sent you today, and we're just looking for a little help. We don't want things to go by the rule of law. So appreciate you. You guys got a hard job ahead of you, and you're going to have to dig deep and prioritize. And the people have spoken, and that's the direction I think we need to go. Thank you.
Good evening, my name's Joe Super. At this time tomorrow, I'll be the new clerk in Rives Junction. Tonight, I'm here as a concerned citizen who's been following the public safety issue. Being out in Rives Junction, we're on the outskirts, so this is something that affects us in several different ways. For one, we're out there and our response times are lower, so any cuts to the public safety budget is going to affect us in terms of our safety. Two, I hope you all have taken the opportunity to have a look at the jail recently. My partner has, and honestly, from what she reports to me, it's not the sort of tour that you would give to a prospective employee of the jail. It's just not a great working environment, not to mention the fact that we are housing people and responsible for their safety and the safety of our employees. This is something that I've been following. I'm really disappointed that the millage did not go through, and I'll be keeping my ears open. I don't think that this is something that is open to a lot of compromise, and I really hope that we find a solution. Thank you.
Any other public comment? Any other public comment? Public comment is now closed. We have no special meetings or standing committees. Approval of the minutes of the October 15th Board of Commissioners meeting.
So moved.
Support. Have a motion and support. Any items for correction? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Duly carried. Entertain a motion for the consent agenda. I have a motion and support. Items for removal.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to remove item 9D, Jackson County Department of Transportation intergovernmental agreement with Columbia Charter Township.
That will move from 9 David to 13B, falling underneath Vice Chairman Corey Kennedy's committee. Any other items for removal for further discussion? Madam Clerk, could you post the vote?
It is posted. Passes unanimously.
Thank you. We're now at item 13, Standing Committee, Public Safety and Transportation, chaired by Vice Chairman Corey Kennedy. Commissioner Kennedy.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We have two items of business tonight. The first are appointments to two different seats, both of which are commissioner seats. The first is the Emergency Management Advisory Council. The new term would expire in April of 2025. The current member is Ray Snell. We do not have an applicant. The second one is the Local Emergency Planning Commission. The current member is Commissioner Williams. We also do not have an applicant for that. Again, if any commissioner can make that work in their schedule, please contact administration as soon as you can. Takes us to the second item, of which was just removed from the consent agenda. Item D, Jackson County Department of Transportation intergovernmental agreement with Columbia Charter Township. Would you like me just to lead out, Mr. Chair, or did you?
Let's start with a motion and a support, and then we'll begin debate.
Okay.
I have a motion from Snell.
Support.
Support from Duckham.
Could you repeat the motion, please?
The motion is item 9, David, from the consent agenda under Public Safety and Transportation, which is a Jackson County Department of Transportation intergovernmental agreement with Columbia Charter Township on removal of private signs from right-of-way.
Thank you.
Commissioner Kennedy.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I take a little issue with this because it's not a uniformed agreement for the entire county, which we currently have. Our county road department has authority over all county road right-of-ways, and if there's a safety hazard, our staff will go out and remove signs. This particular agreement is from Columbia, who has wrote their own ordinance on signs. My problem with that is at the township level, and there's perfect examples in recent years in Leone Township, and then most recently out in Rives with recalls. Oftentimes in politics, you can get current board members who can make decisions on removing certain signs and not for others. Beyond that, you could also get a board of trustees that could be against one individual that owns a business in the area. So in my view, I believe what we have in place now, with the county being the sole authority, is a better means of doing it, so I'll be a no on this.
Commissioner Bear.
Thank you, Chairman. At committee, I voted to support this motion. I waffled back and forth on it, but tonight I'm agreeing with Commissioner Kennedy. We need a uniform system from township to township to township. We shouldn't have special provisions for one township that we don't have for all. So I intend to vote against this motion.
Other commissioner comments? Commissioner Snell?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Couple things with this. If we found that it was being applied unequally, we could rescind it. It gives us that power to do that. You know, there's a proliferation of signs in the right-of-way, and JC Dot just does not have the people to take those signs, to get those signs. They've said that. We know they're short-staffed. That's why, and for the other point of only Columbia Township, this could be a model for the rest of the townships to go ahead and pass this. So I have no problem voting yes on this. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Duckham?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just don't see where the Jackson County Road Commission has the manpower to go out and remove improperly placed signs. I mean, I think we were talking about garage sale signs or political signs, directions to a party sign, and they just can't respond to all them. The township may be able to be in a position to do that, but it does get confusing. We have the ordinance. I don't know if we can, that we already have at the county. I don't know if we can grant authority to let them do the work, but I don't see where the road commission is gonna have time. I'll probably support this. Thank you.
Any other commissioner comments? Any other commissioner comments? Madam Clerk, are you ready to vote? Please post it.
It is posted. Motion passes 5 yea, 4 nay.
Commissioner Kennedy?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. That concludes business for public safety and transportation tonight.
We're now on to Standing Committee General Government, chaired by Commissioner Phil Duckham. Commissioner Duckham.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We have one item of business tonight. That would be appointments. This would be to the Materials Management Plan Committee. We have many filled, many unfilled. We have a Region 2 Planning member at large. It has applied, Betty Trimper. Committee did recommend Betty Trimper. I'll nominate her.
Any other nominations from the floor for this position? Commissioner Bear.
Thank you, Chairman. The Materials Management Plan Committee is going to have a lot of responsibility, a lot of authority, and they're going to have a major impact on the cost to our citizens in Jackson County. I think everybody that is going to be on this committee needs to be a resident of Jackson County. So if they propose something that's expensive, it's going to be expensive for them too. So I would like to vote no on this particular candidate just because they live in St. Clair Shores, not in Jackson County. So that's my comment.
I thank you for your input, Commissioner Bear, but be aware that this person is representing a company, is what she's doing, that resides in Jackson County.
The company may be here, but she doesn't pay taxes here.
Understood. Any other comments? All in favor of Ms. Kemper?
Aye.
Those opposed?
Nay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have another applicant. I talked to him today. He's interested. He don't have a form filled out, but he would like to be approved to be on this committee. It's a small business collection system. a small collection business system. It'd be Curtis of a tactical trash out. And I think it'd be valuable to have a small hauler on there also, because it affects him as well as the large haulers. And I'd like to nominate him.
Is there support for that nomination? We have support.
What position was that for?
We'll deal with that later.
Okay.
Any other comments? Any other nominations? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed?
Aye.
Duly carried.
Okay, I have one other appointment to be for the Land Bank Authority. It's a public member connected with construction materials. Tim Golding is a current member. He has not reapplied. We have no other applicants, so we'll have to advertise for next month too. That's all I have tonight, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Standing Committee, Human Services, chaired by Commissioner Earl Pileski. Commissioner Pileski.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We have appointments in front of us tonight. The perennially vacant spots on the Sanitary Code Board of Appeals. We have a vacancy for an alternate, a contractor alternate, and a well driller alternate. Thus far, we have had no applicants for either of those positions. And that's all I have tonight, sir.
Thank you, Commissioner Pileski. Moving on the agenda to unfinished business. There's none to come before the board. The next item for new business will be the budget discussion, which will be led by the Administrator Controller's Office at this time. And at the end of that, we will follow that with Commissioner questions. Administrator Overton.
Thank you. Can you make that as large as you can so people can see it, please? What you have in front of you here is general fund contributions. And I intend to go down this list tonight and discuss, or describe, I should say, it's not really a discussion, describe what each of those represents. What is legal, what's not legal, what the consequences or implications are to reducing them or eliminating them. First, let me back up and say, as was stated earlier in public comment, in regard to how county governments and government across our state, as well as cities and such, is funded, I've said for years it's broken. I was around working for government in '94 when that proposal A passed. And while at first it made sense and it had merit very much, there's consequences, long-term unintended consequences over time. Every year that inflation outpaces 5%, we lose money. So every year, and recent years especially, inflation's been very significant, but our costs go up by, 10%, 20%, who knows? Gasoline, we still buy cars, tires, you name it, we pay for electricity, fuel, you name it, we pay for it. But our revenue hasn't. Our revenue has been limited by Proposal A of 1994 to 5%. So every year I have to pay for this much with this much money. You can imagine the challenge that creates. No one wants to pay more taxes, myself included. I've been here now for over 13 years, and I'm no different than anyone else. Feel the squeeze of inflation and more taxes and things like that. So it's a very difficult proposition here we have today. And I've told the board for years as well, because this is not the first time we've had to make major cuts. All of our departments, and I could go down the list, have experienced significant cuts over the last 13 years. I mean, the court last year, we reduced them $400,000 right there. We reduced the health department $500,000 just a few years ago. And that's just example of numerous reductions we've had to make. It was to the point where we were gonna have to start closing parks if we didn't do something. So what do? We asked for a millage, and the voters saw fit to grant that. The parks received no money from general fund. So sometimes I've seen emails that say, well, let's cut parks and we can fund law enforcement. There's no money to cut in parks. Because when the voters vote on a millage, that millage says what that money can be spent for. It can't legally be spent anywhere else. I can't divert it somewhere else. And it's true of other things, like the animal shelter. For those who've been around long enough, the animal shelter was out on Blackstone. It was bad, really bad. Nobody wanted to even visit the place. We asked for a millage and the voters approved it. And now we have one of the great animal shelters in the state. But they receive $0 from general fund. So I can't reduce their dollars and somehow support general fund with that. And the list goes on. Department of Aging. We feed 1,500 people a year, a day rather, Meals on Wheels. None of that's general fund money. They have their millage and they have a lot of donations and grants, those kind of things. So it's not a simple matter of just cutting costs here and there in some of these other departments. And what you see in front of you here is not necessarily the expense of each of those departments. And I'll get into that as we go down. What this is the amount of general fund dollars they receive from the county, general fund. They all have grants and other means of revenue, and we'll talk a little bit about that too. One of the things I would like to say too in regard to county government, I've heard government should be a lot more like business. And in a lot of ways, we really are. We are very much run like business. This type of county government especially is very run like business. You have your board of directors, county commissioners, you elect them just like the stockholders would elect board of directors. They hire someone like me. I'm hired not for politics, I'm hired based on my experience, skills and experience. It's that simple, qualifications. And that is true of all of our department heads. We hire people based on qualifications. It's not a political system at all. We have other ways we operate like a business. If you think about it, we have sales, meaning we spend about $135 million a year in Jackson County, providing services. We don't make parts, we provide services, Meals on Wheels or whatever that might be. We do that with about a little over 700 employees. Goes up in the summertime with part-time and things like that, seasonal. About 700 employees. So you think about it, we're a pretty good sized company in that sense. But unlike a company who has sales and they generate revenue, and that revenue can be moved to wherever it's needed, if supply or production or marketing or whatever that is, we don't have that authority. The way our revenue works is, well, first of all, the most of it, over 50% of it, is property tax. And everybody knows what their property taxes are. But those are, again, back to what was said earlier, those are limited to 5% or inflation, the lesser of the two. It's just that simple. So our costs are going to always outpace our revenue. Look at healthcare costs. They haven't been anywhere near 5% for a long time. So every year we fall a little further behind. And as I've told the board many times, we've already cut the paper clips. It's down to what program are we not going to provide. It's just that simple. And you'll see as I go through this. A lot of these departments are very small, maybe 1 or 2 people in them. It's kind of difficult to cut that and still provide the service at all. And so with that said, let's start with the first one here. And again, I'll leave that up there. And online, we have the other sheet as well, which gives you much about what I'm going to say for your reviewing later. But I wanted to stick with this so that you listen to me as opposed to read ahead. Conservation District. Yeah, this is going to be county government, probably summarized master's level funding county government and what we do with the money. The Conservation District, first, it's not even a county department. We provide them, it's $10,000, which represents the bulk of one person there. I have a part-time person who spends much of their time over the course of the year taking care of our solid waste, like recycling tires and a hazardous waste program that we do. And again, we only contribute about 10,000 of that. Down the road here, under landfill, you'll see in there, and I don't want to skip ahead, but I will in this case, we have $100,000 in landfill costs that it's under the landfill, but that 100,000 is what they use in conservation to do the hazardous waste cleanup and the tire collection and disposal and all that stuff. Before we had that program, well, frankly, those things ended up in your garage, cans of paint and so forth, or people would secretly put them in a trash bag and put them to a landfill, which is not a good situation. Or you wouldn't believe how many tires we pulled out of the river and things like that. So it's a good expenditure, but again, is it the priority? The board's got to decide that, and we'll work our way through. The Wellwise services, we give them $12,000. They generate more than $1 million back to the county in expenditures to our residents for that $12,000. That's a required contribution. I have it in red because I can't legally reduce it. And if I did, I'd have to give up the $1 million plus that they give us. So you can imagine that's not on the table. We have appropriations, Region 2 planning. We do not have a planning department in Jackson County. We work with 2 other counties. There's 3 county authority there. In Region 2, our contribution is $55,000. We could not hire one planner for $55,000, let alone 4 who manage all of our activities and things like that in the county. So again, while we could make cuts there, the implications, the impact would be significant. Drains at large. Well, that is special assessment. So when the drain commissioner puts a county drain in and it runs across county property, we're no different than anyone else. We get a special assessment for that, and we have no choice but to pay that. So that's $142,000 in there. The enterprise group. Now this one here is a third party, not a county department. Our number one priority in our last strategic plan was economic development, and you can imagine why that is. We want to have growth in our community that creates more jobs, more opportunities, more people move here, more people build houses, which all adds to our property values and our property taxes and those kind of things. That $100,000 leverages $900,000, an additional $900,000, because the EG, the enterprise group, is a collection of a whole bunch of private industry, businesses, companies in our community. We contribute $100,000 toward that. If I had to hire an economic developer, I can't hire one person for that. They have 4 who work on assisting the county and townships. I know most recent was Blackman and the big development over there. And they manage our Brownfield Authority, they manage our Economic Development Corporation. Those kind of things need staff for that. For the $100,000, I couldn't afford to hire one person, and one person couldn't do all that to begin with. So again, it's a difficult proposition to reduce. Emergency management, that's 1 FTE. It's full-time. Think about what they do. Emergency management, people, I would tell you this, while we pray we never have an emergency, but if we do, we need someone who's been training all along for that occasion. This person manages our EOC, our Emergency Operations Center. So if something bad were to happen, a tanker car spills on the tracks here, or things like that, where we're gonna be having a large mass casualty situation and we need to deal with it, we would open our EOC. This person would open that and help coordinate, bring in all the different players involved. Well, you might say, well, how often does that happen? Well, hopefully never, and it's very rare. But at the same time, he is training with law enforcement and the ambulance service and fire departments out in the townships and everywhere else to make sure those people are properly trained, have the right equipment, those kind of things. Because the time to hire an emergency manager isn't when you have an emergency. You're toast if that's the case. So again, that's a significant cost, $134,000, but I don't see how I can reduce it. It's truly a full-time need. We have 19 townships, I believe. That's a lot of fire departments and stuff like that to deal with. GIS, Geographic Information Systems. And this one here, we have 2 people. And on the face of it, it's like, well, what do? They do maps. And maps aren't important. You'd be surprised what maps do. Maps coordinate with all law enforcement and everyone else, fire departments and stuff on maps. All the realtors and all the public can go on and see any property in the county, what it is or isn't. But more importantly, from my perspective, is they do addressing. It's ironic, the state we don't really have an adequate state law on who assigns an address. You build a new house, who gives you an address? It used to be consumers back in the day. That's how it was. Except for consumers stopped doing that because all of a sudden there's liability issues there. They give a wrong address, you got 2 duplicating addresses, and now the ambulance goes to the wrong place, bad things happen, lawsuits. The county does it. We have to do it. Somebody had to step up, we do that. And it creates some consternation at times when you tell someone they have to change their address. But you all live here. How many main streets do we have in the county? How many shoreline drives do we have? All of a sudden we have people with the same address and it becomes a problem. So that's why we have that need there. MSUE extension. We have 1.2 FTEs on that, 2 part-time people is what we have. And that's the part that we pay for there in that sense. They manage the 4-H program, and as well as all the other ancillary office things that go with that. Because the money we put into MSUE pulls down, we have access to our farmers and things like that. And you might not think about farmers if you're not in farming, but it's big business in our county, farming. And they will have access to 25 experts in whatever it is, soil or some bug or whatever it is. It's beyond my scope. But it's an important thing there. Just the 4-H, they manage 120 volunteers. Over 2,200 kids participate in 4-H annually. I can reduce it, but there's significant consequences to doing that. And that, again, these guys ultimately will have to make some of those decisions. Veterans Affairs.
Mr. Chairman, point of clarification if I could.
Yes, sir?
There's a second chart. Can we put that other chart up there? It has more information.
No, I don't want that second chart up because I want everyone to listen to what I'm saying. They can look at that chart anytime they want. It's online. You're welcome to look at it. I'll even print you a copy if you need it. Unless,
Please continue.
thank you. Veterans Affairs. We have two full-time people there. Basically, a service consultant there, and he has some admin support. People don't realize the impact. First of all, we're required to do Veterans Affairs. So much so, it's so important that the state actually gives us authority to actually levy a millage just for Veterans Affairs. We have not done that here. To be frank, it takes the vote of the people to do that, but we haven't even put that forward. We funded it out of our general fund. It's just less than 200,000. The return on that 200,000 though is millions of veterans who the veterans live here, and our people help them receive the full amount of veterans benefits that they can. That's what these people live on, and handles their health care and other things. And it's a complicated system, as most things are. And I think that is a very worthy cause to fund that. So again, there's consequences to making those kind of reductions. And the Board of Commissioners, that's these folks here. They're about 200,000 a year. But I got to tell you, when you get into the details of what we pay the county commissioners, who I don't think they've had a raise in the time I've been here, at least I can't recall it. They make, let's just say most of you pay your babysitter more than what they make. I think it's 12 to 13,000 a year, maybe 13 to 15 or something like that. Depends on the number of meetings. How much? $13,004. Thank you. I knew it was somewhere around 13. Again, depending on meetings and things like that. And they have a lot of them. When you start looking at it from an hourly perspective, not even to mention, I don't know all the untold phone calls and emails and things like that they respond to. They're a bargain. And you have to have them. Somebody has to represent the people in our county, and that's these guys. I'm the hired help. I listen to these guys as far as sense of direction, the priority, the sense of urgency, all those things. And then I use, well, actually, I'll talk about me in a minute here. Where am I? Health Department. The Health Department's probably one of the best deals we have. You see, I have it in red, 220,000. That's the minimal contribution we can make because we have been reducing them over the years because we don't have extra money. But that 200,000 leverages 10 million in services. Obviously, the bulk of their money comes from grants, things like that. So there is some fee for service, but it's very negligible. Most of it is grant money, which, well, I won't go there. I want to go down rabbit holes about funding on grants, but I'll let that go. And maybe. Landfill. Yeah, that's what I was talking about earlier. 272,000, of which 100 of it is used for the tires and hazardous waste cleanup and pickup and that sort of thing. The other, 172 is literally we own. Well, I'll say it this way. We are responsible for 3 landfills that are all closed that we have to maintain. And you think, well, it's a closed landfill. What's there to do? Well, every time it rains on a landfill, it's continuous, but every time it rains, it gets worse. That water goes through that landfill and it comes out a pipe. It's called leachate. It's nasty. It picks up all the chemicals and everything else in the landfill that's been there for the last 50 or 100 years or what have you. And we have to move them. We have to process them. We can't let them run out on the ground. So we spend an easy $100,000 a year trucking 10,000 gallons a week or more of water, very nasty water, to a processor who can handle it. The local city's wastewater treatment plant can't handle it, given the contamination. We have to take it over to another place for that, over in Ecorse, I think, somewhere over that way. But needless to say, we can't just not do that. We don't have a choice. Jury commission, again, federally required program. I don't have any choice but to pay jurors and things like that. Public elections, the same thing. When an election comes, we have to pay the bill. And you wouldn't think it costs a lot of money, but it does. All the machines and equipment and people that we have to pay to monitor the polling and do all that, it costs money. Can't reduce that. Drain commissioner. Drain commissioner, he has been around. He's been our drain commissioner for over 40 years. And we, this year, did put an extra $100,000 in his budget with the idea being, this was months ago, as we were building our budget, with the idea being that we would hire an engineer to learn the ropes, because sooner or later we're going to need a new drain commissioner. He's been there in office over 40 years, and if when you get elected as drain commissioner, you may or may not know anything about drains. It'd be nice to have someone who understands what's going on in our county before that time. But at the same time, that is $100,000 right there. And that can be reduced, and we wouldn't be any different than we already are in '24 for that. So something to consider there. Finance. We have, for $378,000, we have 4 employees there. And I got to tell you, for a county of our size with over 700 employees, over $135 million, scores of grants. I mean, and think about this. Every time we get a grant for 100,000, a million, whatever the number is, there's all these strings and red tape that go with it. You mess up on the paperwork, you have to pay the grant back. Those people are gold. We can't, to do it with less than 4 is unimaginable, to be frank about that. Airport. And I've heard a lot of people say, well, we don't, airport, that's a rich boys club. We don't need that. Contraire. Airport is an economic engine in our county. The last numbers that I've seen on that, and they're going to be doing it again, I think next year in '25, the last numbers I saw on that were $18 million in economic activity that comes out of the airport. Because think about it, a lot of corporations have planes at the airport and they fly their CEOs and people in and out. We have some businesses there that fly in parts just in time. You've heard of it. Things like that. We do all that with 4 people. And it's like, well, can you do it with 3? Well, when it snows, I have to have everybody out there, even the director of the airport manager is out driving a snowplow because you got to clear the runway. They do everything. They wear all the hats that are necessary there. To manage the operation with less would be, let's just say, very difficult. Public defender, non-criminal. Again, that's a state requirement, state minimum, and the best way to describe that, it's all things juvenile. It's juveniles, underage folks, that we deal with. Emergency dispatch, 911, 500,000. About, I want to say 7, 8 years ago, we went to the voters, to you, and asked for an increase in our phone tax. It's a fee on your phones. Everybody gets it. Every phone line in the county and every phone line in the country, I think, does it. And it's $1.50. We thought that would be enough. And it was, because it was pretty much general fund didn't have to pay into the 911. We didn't have to fund it. But as you can see with inflation, and it's now, we're up to $500,000 a year coming from general fund. I can't reduce 911. We're already understaffed over there. If you look at the national standards, we're way understaffed. Kudos to Jason and those guys. They do the job, but it's a very difficult proposition there. But I'm reluctant to go back out to the voters and say, hey, I need another increase in your phone tax. The day may come when we have to. Equalization. Equalization, I don't know if you know what they do, but basically they evaluate everyone's property. So your township assessors and city assessors too place values on each of your property, and that's your property taxes decided. Well, equalization evaluates them, evaluating you to make sure it's fair and proper and all that sort of thing, and the numbers add up and it's done correctly, and it's in compliance with state law. And he's done a great job, a young man named Joe we have there. He's reduced staff, and he's down to what, six FTEs there. So again, minimal service level. And public defender. Well, it's just that. If you don't have enough money to pay for an attorney, one will be provided. And this is the minimal service level that we have. Their budget is in the millions. The state pays for it, but the state said you will pay $517,775 and no less. We do. I can't cut it. Human resources, $600,000, 4.5 FTEs. But again, 700 plus employees. Think about that just for a second there. You know, every time an employee has a problem with a paycheck or they want to change their benefits or whatever the case may be, it's these 6 people have to, or excuse me, 4.5 people have to deal with it. The industry standard, we'd have to have a few more employees we'd have to have 7 to be. It's usually one employee for every 100 employees in HR. We're down to 4.5. And that's because we've made cuts over the years. We have to. We don't have a choice. We realize we can't keep asking people for tax increases, so we keep making cuts. Administration, I'm 620,000. We have 4 FTEs. Actually, we have 3 now. We lost one, and Frank, I got to quote saying frankly. But we can't very well replace that person at this time. I mean, we're gonna just have to make it work with the 3 of us. Give you some sense of that. Can the county run without me? You can. Can you do it for a long time? No. You'd be a mess. Because again, I represent these guys. There's over 30 plus different departments and organizations that I deal with directly. Part of that dealing with them is providing them with direction that I get from these guys, making sure that we're all marching in sync to what the county commissioners think's important and is a priority. It's just that simple. But you can, but I just know in the long run, it doesn't pay off. Again, back to operating like a company out there. Anybody know a company with 135 million in sales, 700 employees, and has no president of the company? No, it doesn't work long term. Medical examiner, again, 770,000, 2.7 FTEs. And we're like, wait a minute, we must be paying those people a whole lot of money. No, most of it's contractors, pathologists. for those who don't know what the medical examiner does, when there's a death, be it an accident on the road or just a natural cause death in a home or one in the hospital or what have you, if it's on a highway somewhere, we will send out a person to collect the body. That's a contractor. We usually contract all that out. And then ultimately, if there's some question as to why the person died, a pathologist, those are very specialized doctors. They get paid a lot of money, will come in and do the autopsy. And I don't have a choice. It's not like we have to decide, well, we're not doing it this time. No, we can't. If you were to not do it, and then the family were to sue, which they could because we neglected our responsibility, we ended up paying more than it would have cost for the pathologist. And there's always those liability. I wear one of those hats I wear is risk management. I'm always looking at liability exposures and what we can or can't do. Well, we can do with less, but one lawsuit and suddenly I'm not ahead of the game anymore. So we got to be careful of those. Friend of the court, 47 employees. Everyone's like, wow, 47 employees. You know what friend of the court does with child support and things like that, making sure children are taken care of and the like. But what most people don't realize is we only pay for 1/3 of that cost. So if I cut $1 out of the friend of the court, I lose $3 in service. I lose the $2 the state gave me and the $1 we had. It's significant impact if we were to cut that. County clerk. I can't say enough about the county clerk and her operation there, $817,000. They have 17.5 employees, and I believe they're understaffed. I think she would agree, but I know they have struggled with all the responsibilities they have. I won't go further on that. Pension, this is not up on the screen here, but this one is something I added. It's called the ARC. It's the annual required contribution, and that is in regard to our pension. Hang on one second. The pension, how do I describe this? Every time an employee works another year, they're entitled to more pension pay. It's just that simple. They get a bigger retirement because they worked another year. So every year they work another year, we have to contribute money into the pension plan. And that dollar amount is $1.2 million this year. Again, I've heard people say, well, do we have to do that? Well, no, but there's consequences. If we do not keep up on our funding for our pension, one, we won't ultimately have enough to pay people when they retire. Two, next audit cycle, which we're audited every year, we'd get an audit finding, which would ultimately affect our bond rating. And that's the rating that Standard & Poor's and Moody's gives us so we can borrow money. And meaning next time we borrow money, we have to pay more interest. So are you really ahead? You got to pay attention to all those factors. It is, and there's a lot of them.
Mike, can I say something? Can I ask you something?
Yes, the chair.
Just so everyone knows, the pension is closed.
Yes.
So these are costs associated with people that were grandfathered in or have already retired, correct?
She's not general fund at all. Yes.
Did you hear it? You want me to restate it?
No, I heard you. It's
Okay.
closed, and this is just the people that are in the pension. So yes.
So
in fact,
I think it's important that people know that there isn't a pension for all county
it's
employees
been
anymore.
closed for, 15 or more years, Steve? Yeah, it's been a long time that it's been closed. And for what it's worth, everyone who's not in a defined benefit plan is in a defined contribution plan, which means for every, the county will put in $1 for $1 up to 5% of whatever they put in, is what it is. Which in my mind is not enough, but still I got to be able to pay the bills. IT, information technology, there's a big one. We're getting up to real money here. $1.865 million, 12 full-time employees. Back in the day, it wasn't nearly as important, but I would tell you that today, when our computer stops working, everything stops. Courts, when their computers go down, they send jurors home. I mean, courts, you can't run it without the technology. And it's true of all of our stuff. We rarely issue paper checks. We will if we have to, but it's all IT, managing all that. And you can imagine, you see in the newspaper or on TV about cybersecurity and all that. We have a rather strong program there, because once someone gets in and locks us out or steals our information or worse, it's bad things happen. So we try to maintain and stay up on that. Could we reduce there? Yeah. What happens the next time you call for IT support, it's just going to take that much longer, and your office will be, let's just say, less productive at that time. And law enforcement too, they all have laptops and cameras and all kinds of stuff in their cars that have to be maintained as well. It's not like it touches every department. For some information, prosecuting attorney, currently I'm at the mandated minimum. I can't reduce that below the 2.2 million. And of course, the prosecutor would definitely tell you that he needs more money and he's underfunded. And he's running really light and tight in his program there. Facilities, 2.4 million, I'm rounding up. 19 full-time employees. Could it reduce there? Yeah, I could probably reduce an employee there. But they clean 105 bathrooms a day. We have over 600,000 square feet of very old buildings. Almost none of our buildings in the county were designed to be county buildings. I mean, they were Elks lodges, and this was a bank, and things like that. And they're old, and it costs a lot of money to do work on them. Every time we do something, we run into asbestos and other materials that you have to be certified, and our people are certified to do that. Otherwise, I've contracted that stuff out. So while it can be, what I found in past experiences, you cut yourself too short on people like that, and ultimately you pay more because you're just contracting out that kind of work. Retirement benefits. This is a tough one. We have a whole, we have over 600 people retired from the county workforce that receive benefits from the county. Collectively, that is, $3.5 million? General fund, it's $2.5 million. And that's the 2.5 I control, if you will, as far as helping my situation of trying to reduce the budget by 1.3. Could we reduce or eliminate retiree benefits? The short answer is yes. Is that the right answer? I don't think so. Those people worked here a long time. We promised them this. But at the same time, I have an obligation to the other 700 plus employees that work here too. And it gets a difficult proposition. We have people on retiree benefits that have a $5 drug card. Nobody has a $5 drug card anymore. So it's a tough proposition, as you can imagine, the resentment that it can also create amongst people who are currently working who don't have any of that. All of our employees going back 15 years plus have no retiree health insurance. So when they retire, they get zero, while we pay this to those who do. So you can imagine, I'm trying to balance that amongst the existing workforce and the retired workforce, and fairness and equity, and it becomes problematic. There's no easy answers here, guys. Child Care Youth Center, $2.5 million, 24 FTEs, it's mandated. So if a child, you go and think of it this way, you go into a home, officers do, and they have, for whatever reason, remove some children from a home, or the children, a child is in trouble with the law or other things, this all covers that. We have to pay for it. It's not like we can say, no, we're not paying for it. We have to. We have no choice but to pay for it. We can't leave a child in a home where they're being hurt, and things like that. So the state pays half of it, so we're only paying for half of it. But nonetheless, I don't really have a whole lot of choice in the matter. And it varies. The amount varies because you don't really know how many children you're gonna have that year in the system, if you will. So we need to do best we can there on our budget. And our budget, just for what it's worth, it's our best guess. I mean, it really is. We're trying to budget a year out. And granted, we do a pretty decent job, but it's still based on prior history and anything in the state legislature that we're looking at, that where they're gonna raise this or that or do something to us, keep our state revenue sharing, things like that, reduce the money we receive for roads, which they have, things like that. Courts, this is combined, the district and circuit, and they're at $3.5 million, 69 FTEs. Mandated services, we very well can't say we're not gonna fund courts or not have courts. Can you reduce it? Yeah. We don't get to decide how many judges there are. That's the state legislature that decides that. There's costs associated with that, but it's not our decision. Our decision, the way the state works is we just have to pay the bill. And then there's the sheriff's department, and it's, well, $12 million here. Their actual budget is closer to $15 million, but that's other funds. The $12 million is what the general fund gives them. And I've had people say to me, well, give them all the marijuana money. Well, the marijuana money is about $900,000 a year. It goes to the general fund, of which $12 million goes to the sheriff. It's going there now. It's not like it's not already there. So when someone says that, I'm like, well, does that change anything? No, it's already in general fund, which $12 million of which goes to the sheriff's office. And then there's one other thing that's not on there that occurred to me, and it's been mentioned, and that is, how about we punt? How about we kick the can down the road? Let's use cash, use our reserves, use our savings account. We've done that for the last 2 years. Remember, this is the third time we've gone to the voters for this. The first two, obviously, we were looking for to build a jail. And the last one, though, was strictly just to offset the loss in that. And it's not any of the commissioners' or fault that the 0.25 or the jail millage that expired had operating costs in it. That goes back 25 years ago when that was approved. We just have to play the cards that are dealt. These are the cards, and there's tough decisions to be made here. With that, I would take any and all questions, I guess. Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Snell?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm not sure I have anything really more, but I'm going to iterate a few things that have come up over the last couple of weeks, people calling me, emailing me, talking to me. And as I've told many of them, we've tried to pass this millage 3 times. We were unsuccessful. I think we put a lot of time and effort into trying to get this passed. I know when the second attempt, we spent almost $100,000 between educational information that we sent out, and there was a PAC set up that could do please vote for us. So I think we did a valiant effort there. I don't think any of us like looking at the choices that we have to make. But we're required to have a balanced budget. It's required by state law. Looking at the chart and hearing the explanation that we did, there aren't a lot of places to cut. Even tonight, after another meeting I was at earlier, it was suggested to me that we cut parks money, that we cut animal shelter, that we cut Lifeways, and as was already discussed, they're dedicated millages. We cannot cut, we cannot take from them what the voters said that money needs to go to, must go to. And the last thing, and I don't know if I even want to talk about it, but the easiest thing would just to be put our heads down and say, wow, we can save $500,000 on retirement insurance. But I don't think anybody wants to put this on the back of our retirees. We are just beginning to look at where we can cut budget outside of the sheriff's department. I think that we'll give it our best shot, but as you can see on that chart there, that's where the majority of the money is. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Darius?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I won't beat a dead horse. We've discussed in great detail tonight. Thank you, Mr. Overton, for your presentation tonight. But we have quite a task in front of us, and I'm reminded of a phrase that my father would often say in times such as this when we're looking at budget cuts and things, that it's unfortunate that we have to rob Peter to pay Paul. And that's essentially where we are. We have, you know, there's not a commissioner up here that wants to cut from the sheriff's department. And so we're going to, with that, it's going to require some tough conversations and taking a deep look at where we can. And as have heard tonight, there really isn't much places where we can do that. I have some thoughts on some things, and as conversations continue, we can look at the feasibility of those things. But you know, we really have quite a task to do tonight. But I do have maybe one or two questions for you, Mr. Overton. My first question, we've already have kind of discussed this, but I do ask this just for the sake of the public. Have we exhausted all state and all federal options for this cost?
Yes.
Thank you. So, because that was a question that I've gotten a lot over the past couple of weeks, and so I just wanted to make sure that was on the record, that we have exhausted those options. I know we had mentioned the Drain Commissioner's office. I know that the need for the work that's going on there and for the position I think that we're trying to fill. But I do see that there may be an option to do something there. And like I said, I know we have some more conversations that need to be had. And quite frankly, when I look at this list, I don't know where to start. Because if you cut something, we have the risk of forfeiting any state dollars. We have the risk of forfeiting these services, other services to the county. But I'm encouraged that with the like-minded individuals around the table that we can come to some type of compromise with this, because that's really what it's going to require. And everybody's not going to get what they want, but I think that if we can, again, come together and create the conversation and make those appropriate sacrifices, I think we can come to a compromise where most people can at least feel happy. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have nothing further.
John?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a question. We with about 75,000 votes, excuse me, we fell 984 votes short. So I know the message of urgency is kind of getting out. Is there time that will allow us to consider a fourth run of the basket, or is that just not feasible? Honestly.
I'll say it this way. It costs money to have an election. In 2 years, there is an election that we have to pay for regardless. So to add something onto that ballot measure wouldn't cost us anything. So in 2 years, yes, but you either have to kick the can down the road, meaning use our reserves, cash, which we could do. The reason you have reserves is someday bad things happen and you wish you had the money. Otherwise, we have to borrow the money to correct whatever the problem might be. You can do that.
That was my only question. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Pileski?
Thanks, Mr. Chair, for the opportunity to talk about this. This is, as has been mentioned, there are no good choices here. And when I think of the options that might happen, anything that might be suggested would be found appalling by at least a quarter of this room, okay? Any one of them would be found appalling. We've been told 3 times by the voters, no. And I guess with respect to John's suggestion, we may try to resurrect that dead horse at some point, and I think we are gonna have to, okay? But we spent, I think, over $50,000 of county money, which is, I think, as much as we dared to spend to attempt to influence, or I should say, inform the voters. And we had a political action committee formed that spent over $35,000, actually still owes money to its consultant, money that was spent to attempt to get folks to vote yes back in August. We came close. Close doesn't count. And 3 times people have said no. And these are general fund monies. These are not parks monies or roads or the senior millage. This is not the animal shelter. This is not the medical care facility or Lifeways or any of the other dedicated revenues that we have here at the county. This is general fund money over which we have judgment. And we're going to have to make some tough choices when we adopt our budget in December. I agree with the suggestions that's been made by the administrator's office. Looking forward to talking more about it and adopting a budget in December, which is our job. That's our job as your Board of Commissioners. And I note also that all of us were reelected, which tells me the population was okay with us making this decision, even though we were the ones that put the millage on the ballot, for which they did not vote. We will do our job in December. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Duckham.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm second tenured commissioner here. Steve Shotwell, the chair, has been here longer than I. Then I come in as far as seniority. Been here a long time. I can tell you every time we come up to budget year, we don't decide how we're gonna spend our money. We've decided how we're gonna cut our funds because the revenue has decreased and the services are still needed to be provided. Every year, there has been cuts here. I'm talking a long time. Result, we're where we're at. The Headley Amendment is doing exactly what Mike Overton says it does. It gets us fewer dollars every year. We went through the housing bubble, and there was houses being foreclosed on. People had to leave their homes. They couldn't afford the taxes or their payments, and we had excess housing capacity. So we haven't had new houses built here in a long time. New houses, new buildings going up is the only place we get a gain in revenue. Other than the 3 or 4% it'll go up every year. But the inflation takes that away from us and still takes more away than, inflation's outpacing our revenue gains. Our fund balance, we can't take it out of our fund balance. I mean, we could, but that's our savings account. And we have to have that saving account there because between tax collection periods, well, I collect twice a year. Sometimes it comes in fast, sometimes it comes in slow. But the employees all want their check. They want their check. And we have to dip into that fund balance sometimes to make our checkbook sufficient. We can't give that away. And it's there to use and it's too hard, we'd never put it back. If we funded the sheriff operation out of the fund balance, it's gonna be gone. And we don't have a way to replace that. It's years to accumulate. One of the biggest problems coming in is declining state revenue is an example. And we all complain about the roads. But the state gave us $6 million less this year than the previous year. And the roads, we can't keep up with the roads when they keep cutting our revenue. Very, very few ways to gain revenue other than the millages, and I pay taxes too, and I don't like taxes. Economic development, yes, it was through our study group, it was our main priority. Grow the county, grow the revenue. My outlook is the police, law enforcement is my highest priority. You might come here and say, well, we're gonna go there because it's good jobs, but you're not gonna come here if we don't have police. Well, everything starts with the police force. I will look my very best to find a way where we don't have to park the cars. We can't do it. You know, we just can't do that. So we gotta fund our officers, and we don't have many more places to cut. As you can see, the total cuts we could make probably don't even all add up to what the sheriff needs to keep the road patrol on. And we would eliminate a lot of departments, and people will suffer that way too. So we're in a bad spot, and we got to get our way out of it, and we will. It's not going to be easy. Thank you.
Commissioner Kennedy?
Thank you for the opportunity, Mr. Chair. First thing I'd like to do is direct this to the administrator. I would like you to look into each of these departments, what they are currently operating at on the budget. I would like to identify all those operating below the budget through attrition, whether that be retirement, quitting, termination. I'd like to identify that, because when you make cuts, sometimes it's easier to do something that's already operating at a current level rather than taking it when it's not. So I'm hopeful. I know you can look into that and your staff and get back to us on that. I think that'll be something that all the commissioners can look at and make wise decisions. Beyond that, I think we need to take a balanced approach. I don't think one department should shoulder all of it. I have identified some things in my mind that are not sheriff related that are gonna hurt, but I'm comfortable with doing it. The public will feel it, regardless of what department's cut. Beyond that, I'm gonna speak something differently. Rather than kicking the can down the road and using the general fund reserves to fund operations, which would just be foolish, because within a couple years, a few years, it would be gone. I do think it would be wise to take the amount that the reserves are over, that keeps us in the safe zone of the percentage that we have to carry, to start putting that aside and start doing projects to the jail. The voters have made it loud and clear they're not gonna fund it. The problems aren't going away. I know this is a separate issue from the budget cut, but I believe they go hand in hand. And I think not only would our deputies appreciate seeing some progress slowly and slowly, I think the community would too. So I'd like to get some raw numbers on where we're at, how much we could take out of the reserves and still be in the safe percentage zone, and start coming up with an effective plan to start improving the Chanter Road facility. Thank you.
Commissioner Walls?
Thank you, Chairman. I am going to echo Commissioner Kennedy. I've talked about attrition and looking at those numbers since the millage failed in August. And I'm looking forward to see that information from the administrators, so that we are not cutting any jobs that are out there if we can avoid it. If there are empty positions that have been empty for a period of time and we've gotten along without them, those are probably the positions we need to consider. You know, there's lots of things to consider here, but I'm not sure in looking at this that I'm willing to sacrifice our seniors. I am not willing to sacrifice our veterans. And I think we need to pay attention to our youth. Our job is not for what's happening today, but we have to look at what's going to happen to this county in the future. It's not a today thing. We have to look at the whole picture of how our decisions are going to affect the children and the seniors of this county going forward. Thank you.
Commissioner Bear.
Thank you, Chairman Shotwell. When I see a budget shortfall, I don't look at what are we gonna cut. My mind doesn't work that way. First thing I go to is where we're gonna get the money. So, Administrator, I don't know if you really shared your recommendations that were coming from the chair, vice chair, yourself, and the assistant administrator, where your recommendations were to cut $900,000 from the sheriff, $300,000 from the courts, $100,000 from the drain commissioner. So that would compensate for our 1.3 million shortfall. As I said, when I say shortfall, I don't cut people. I go a different route. I have identified 6 different sources of funds that will be coming to us this year that did not come to us last year. I can go over these in more detail later, and maybe people argue that some of these funds we can't do, but I've identified 6 sources that you total them up, $5,825,936. So I move that to achieve a balanced 2025
Commissioner
Jackson
Bear,
County
Commissioner
budget-
Bear, Commissioner Bear,
Quit interrupting
Commissioner
me.
Bear, we are in a discussion right now with all other commissioners. Please respect your fellow commissioners and let us finish the discussion
They've all
before you begin
spoken.
any motions.
They've all spoken except you.
And you've chosen to supersede me.
Pardon me?
You've chosen to supersede me.
Anybody can make a motion anytime they want. That's
So-
according to Robert's Rules
So
of
your
Open
respect,
Board policy.
your respect for your fellow commissioners is not relevant. Your arrogance is showing again, sir. Go ahead and make your motion. Go ahead and make your motion, sir.
Thank you. I move that to achieve a balanced 2025 Jackson County budget without taking $100,000 from the drain commissioner's budget, and without taking $300 from the court's budget, and without taking $900 from the sheriff's budget, that we withdraw $1,475,000 from the Jackson County Reserve Fund by December 15th, 2024, and use this $1,475,000 to assure that there will be no $100,000 cut to the drain commissioner's 2025 budget, and to assure there will be no $300,000 cut to the court's 2025 budget, and to assure there will be no $900,000 cut to the sheriff's 2025 budget, and add $15,000 to the sheriff's budget for the purpose of purchasing new bulletproof vests for the sheriff's mounted division, and add $160,000 to the sheriff's budget for the purpose of installing a highly needed scanner in the county jail. Further, it is anticipated that Jackson County will receive an energy tax credit in 2025, which is now being prepared by Riemann Professional Tax Services, in an anticipated amount of $1,989,868, and $1,475,000 of this energy tax credit is to be put and is anticipated, and $1,470,000 of this energy tax credit is to be put into the reserve account to return the reserve fund to its present amount, and any additional money from the energy credit we applied to the sheriff's 2026 budget. Now, our clerk would be amazing if she was able to write that.
Do we have support for Commissioner Baird before he even gets up? Is there support? Your motion dies for the lack of support. So your motion dies for the lack of support.
Anybody gonna support our, you haven't even read the whole message, and you haven't had time to comprehend it.
No, thank you.
Do we support this? I asked you to.
Mr. Chair, there's no support.
Mayor, you're out of order wandering around the room, sir. Please return.
A lot of commissioners wander around the room, every one of us.
Just move on without it.
Use the bathroom. So this is what they do.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
So, Commissioner Bear, your grandstanding is over with, sir. Please sit down. Your motion is out of order. We're moving on the agenda.
Oh, that's not consistent with Robert's Rules of Order, and it's not consistent with our board policies. You're not being a chairman, you're being a tyrant. Well, I'll ask again, any of the other 8 commissioners, are you willing to support our sheriff? Are you gonna put your money where your mouth has been?
Yeah.
Several of you said you support the sheriff. Now's the moment to back up that statement. Anybody?
Commissioner Bear, I told you, your motion died for the lack of support. We're moving on the agenda.
Recruit some support. Maybe somebody will have a spine and step up.
Maybe you need to be a little bit more relevant and responsible to your fellow commissioners. You are the one that's being out of order.
Being more relevant than we do not need to gut our sheriff's department? How much more relevant can anybody be?
We're moving on, sir. Are there any other items to come before the board under new business?
We are outraged.
You are out of order, ma'am.
Damn thing, he's trying to solve a problem.
Ma'am, if you continue, I'll have to ask the sheriff to remove you.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. Since you don't support him, maybe he won't.
Being a tyrant. Yes.
We're on to public comment now. Public comment guidelines, each individual will state their name and have 2 minutes to address the board. You may only address the board once under this public comment opportunity and may not yield your time to others. The board members will not debate nor answer questions at this time. Is there any public comment?
Rosemary Tanner again. I'm going to ask the question with the elephant in the room.
She's not ready.
Oh,
The screen needs to come up.
pardon?
The screen needs to come up, just one moment.
Oh,
2 minutes.
oh, I'm 2 minutes, that's right. I just have a question. Are we ready now? Okay. I'm going to ask the question for the elephant in the room that people have been asking me, which I don't know. Of course, I've been a resident in Jackson all my life. I want to know why this hasn't been talked about, planned about. Who can explain to the public why this board, whether it's current, past, or whatever, not been planning for this? You knew it was going to happen 20 years ago when the millage came due. What was the provision to provide for that? And I think that's the frustration the public is having right now, is we have to plan for stuff. Nobody has ever explained to us why this has never been addressed before. Just a question. And if you can answer that, then that might help ease a little bit. So, Mr. Overton, you got the floor.
Good evening. My name is Marcy Jankovich, Summit Township. We've heard about cuts for services, but we have not heard about fees for service. Voters have turned down millages, so now perhaps it's time to raise fees imposed on citizens using those services. The clerk collects fees for every document that's filed with the clerk of courts. The parks collect camping fees. There's a fee to register a deed. There are even incarceration fees, and the list goes on when we see fees. Perhaps it's time to consider raising the fees paid by the folks who actually use the service instead of imposing millages on everyone. So part of your consideration might be where to add instead of cut.
I'm John King from the city of Jackson. When the ARPA funds were announced, there were the interviews and with Administrator Overton, the impression I got, it was like, oh, that's going to make my job a lot easier. There were other officials that kind of did that, and it wasn't said in the exact words or anything. Of course, if a lot of money is switched over to the sheriff's department, that'll make Sheriff Schuette's job easier. A lot of people can, they have their positions, and living in the city, I didn't see a good campaign for the jail millage. So I live just west of downtown. I know, I've seen like Amy J. Hawkins, she's been, going into different groups. I don't know if she gets paid or exactly what. I think the ethical thing for her to do would, state, how she's getting paid. I'm not sure if she's a consultant or what, but that's kind of frustrated the really pro-police thing. So the administrator mentioned the reserves for a really bad time or tough time. Well, not having the sheriff's position, a lot of them empty, is a really bad time. And the number one thing of government is to protect the citizens. So
30 seconds, sir.
Okay, so I notice Nancy Smith is just to my right. I owe her an apology. That's a city hall deal, so I'm sorry, to her. So I wanted to say that. So thank you.
Yeah, Bruce Giller again. According to my calculations, in order to raise the 1.3 million, it's a 6% cut across the board for everybody that's not red. So I also wonder if you can ask your bond people that receive their bonds, are they allowed to donate back? So like they could donate 2 or 3% of their bond back. You can't take it from them, but can they donate back to help you guys get through this rush? And also, as a citizen that pays taxes, I would like to know if there's any valid part of what Mr. Bear said that you guys aren't telling us about. Because if there's an abundance of money coming in from a power benefit, I think you owe it to us to explain everything to us, not just the parts you want us to know. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Nicholas Thurston. I live in the city of Jackson. I do also have a lot of questions and concerns about the stuff that Tony Bear proposed. I think the commissioners should definitely take an honest and hard look at that, if it's feasible, because there is always money coming in the future, sometimes in the form of credits, things like that, or a surplus from somewhere, some windfalls that we might have right now at this time, but the calendar year is about to roll over very soon. We'll have a new administration. It's important to look at the stuff. And my grandfather worked for the county for decades. He retired, he had great health care benefits, but I'm positive if he was alive right now, he would tell you guys to, give that a review and see if it's still appropriate. We have things changing now at the federal level as well, state, where people have more access to healthcare options that they didn't have when he was a young man my age. But, you know, like I said, by the time he was old enough to retire and claim those things, he had a very, you know, interesting perspective that I don't think has been shared here tonight. But just wanted to relay that message. Thank you so much.
Good evening again. I've been in Jackson my whole life. We've had a business in Jackson for over 75 years. We've paid taxes too. I fought this city for the last 30 years, watching the city waste money over and over and over again. You said that the marijuana money went to the sheriff's department. That's not all true. It also went to the Blackman Township new fire department truck, which is necessary. I don't say that that's necessary. Why also has the city of Jackson, the revenue, why is it decreased? Has the population decreased? Why is the population decreased? The jobs are going. Is it because of the rules and regulations? That's why I had to move my company out of the city of Jackson, because of the rules and regulations were way too much. So I moved into Summit Township. Now Summit Township, like I said before, is going to be raising my water 50%. The only thing I can do is shut my water off. I am a commercial business, but all I'm going to be using is flushing the toilets. But how can I go from a $100 water bill to over $200 water bill using the same? So if I've got to find a way to pay for my water with just no other increase in money coming in,
30 seconds, ma'am.
then I believe once again you can as well. You can budget. It says December is budget time. I will definitely put my nose to the grind and I will find out where you can get this money from, because I know darn well the city of Jackson has gotten a lot of money and they need to help secure safety in this city, and the sheriff's department is very important for my Summit Township business as well as my Rise County.
Ma'am, you've run out of
residents.
time. Thank you.
So much.
So my name is Joanne with Blackman Township. I don't care how you guys spend this, it's defunding the police. Safety needs to be a priority. You guys' salaries, maybe put it onto the side. I'm sure you guys done that years in the past. I also know that there are some employees of the county who are making quite a bit, that are probably above average. Some of these things need to be looked at, because safety comes first. Do better. Thank you.
Good evening, Amy Hawkins, Pulaski Township. Just for the record, everything that I am doing online is because I love our law enforcement. I am a very happy volunteer, eager to be a part of the civic process. I want to invite all of you, fine gentlemen and lady, to be heroes right now. I think what we're seeing all across the nation, there's going to be a massive reset where different people are recalibrating what is important and what is not. When we look back to what is the purpose of government, there are basically four different specifics, and I would encourage you guys all to revisit that. Instead of Mr. Overton's fine presentation tonight, I heard you go through every category and say, this is a reason why we can't cut this, we can't cut this, we can't cut this. Instead, may I suggest taking the 4 pillars, and security is one of them, letting those 4 priorities, your infrastructure, your safety, your health, let those be your starting points. Make sure those things are funded adequately and look at everything else as fringe. We would love to have all the resources in the world, but you and I all know, as fine, wise men and lady, that if we do not have a healthy and a safe, secure community, businesses will leave, families will leave, law enforcement, I guarantee you, are already looking for other jobs. They will not be here. Jackson County will go down in population. You won't have more taxes. We have the opportunity right now to be heroes and reset the trajectory. And I also want to say this. There are a number of people in your community who are excited and eager to be a partner with you in the solution process. I know I can only speak for me and a couple others, but we were not reached out to engage in town halls or public forums to help you educate on this. But if you can find a way forward to not
10
cut
seconds.
this money now, then we would love to be a part of finding a solution for the future. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is William Hastings. I live in the city. Again, this is a large and complex issue and problem, and it's going to probably take a sort of multifaceted approach to even begin to arrive at anything looking like a solution. So I do appreciate Tony Baer trying to look at the other side of the coin, which is income, and if in fact there is significant income coming through various state or federal grants or credits or anything of that nature, that should be taken into consideration now. So one of the things I got out looking at the chart you put up, which was very helpful and informative, but one of your top 5 expenses is information technology. I am not aware if the city, or excuse me, if the county does their IT in-house or if they have a contractor to do so. It might be very worthwhile to try to bid out your IT needs to an outside or third-person contractor. There may be some significant savings there. Next item, what do I have, 59? Next item, so concerning the rainy day funds or county reserves that are meant, for break glass in case of emergency, I think it's imperative that we do keep the sheriffs funded at their current levels so as to keep those patrol deputies on the road. I think that's what those funds, if this is an emergency that merits those funds, I'm really not sure what that would be. And finally, I would just begin, in addition to looking, and I'd also like to add another excellent point you need to look into is the fines and fees. This issue that was brought up by Marcy Jankovic. You need to comprehensively review those. You need to raise those. And I noticed when she was showing me a fee schedule that a lot of those on their various fees were waivable.
10 seconds.
Thanks. A lot of those need to be less waivable. So good luck.
Any other public comment? Any other public comment? Public comment is now closed. Commissioner comments. Commissioner Baer.
I'd just like to touch on some of the monies that haven't been reported to the citizens. Our administrator anticipates a 3.5% increase in our county operating millage. As property values go up, you're paying the same millage, but you're paying a higher dollar amount. So that will equate to an increase in our general fund this year over last year, anticipated to be $1,383,664. So that alone can cover the sheriff's need. The marijuana excise tax that we are receiving this year is $886,295.25. So that alone is almost enough to cover what the sheriff needs. Our energy credit, we should be getting this early 2025. This is based on the Verigy project, installing all of the energy efficiency systems throughout all our county buildings. By contract, they must be done by March 31st, 2025. So most of those energy efficiencies have been installed. The tax credit we are anticipating in 2025 from those energy constructions, we're going to receive a tax credit of $1,000,000 $989,868. The energy savings guaranteed by Verigy is going to be $961,209 per year. So that's $961,000 that used to come out of the general fund that isn't going to have to anymore. And that should be starting next year. Increase in revenue sharing from the state, $354,900. We have an escrow fund of about $250. We're still sitting on from when the landfill closure. That was closed years ago. So we ought to be able to figure out how we can take that out of the escrow fund and utilize that $250,000. When the Verigy project is done, their contract requires them to, by March 31st, 2025, have completed a wastewater treatment plant out on Dalton Road. So that will eliminate the majority of the $118,000 a year, the cost of removing the leachate from that property now and taking it to a hazardous landfill. After that wastewater treatment plant is completed, that leachate will be sterile, it'll be a solid, and it can just go to a regular landfill. So that's going to save us over $100,000 a year. So we've got $5,825,936 coming in that I don't believe has been applied to this budget. We've got more than enough money coming in that we can temporarily take some money out of our reserve, wait till we get this $1,989,868 back from our energy credit. We can put that, as I recommended, that $1,400,000, we can put it back in our reserves. So in 3-4 months, our reserves will be back to what they are currently. Nobody loses. And we don't lose any sheriff's deputies. If somebody thinks that we're not going to get this operating millage increase, 1.3 million, or if we're not going to get the excise, the marijuana excise tax, these monies are just about guaranteed. We're going to get them. So if they're not going to be spent to avoid taking money from the sheriff, from the court, from the drain commissioner, any other groups we're taking money away from, what are you squirreling that money away for? What are you going to use it for? We got 5.8 million to account for. If anybody wants to go over these numbers, I'm glad to do it later.
Are you finished, Commissioner Bear? Are you finished, sir?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Okay, then I'd like to speak now. Is that okay? I want to make sure you're all right with me speaking. With that, I'm going to let Administrator Overton explain your $6 million.
Sadly, Tony, you're in error. Well, I'm an expert at this, and you are not, clearly. You've read the audit, and the audit is not the budget. All the money you're talking about, the tax, for instance, the refund we're going to get on the energy tax. We spent $28 million to do these energy projects. How do you think we're paying for those energy projects? We take the revenue that we're going to receive, like in tax credits and things like that, and apply it to the debt. It's a 20-year debt. We don't come out ahead for 20 years. Every year I have a debt payment I have to make. All that money goes to that. We have none of this extra money that you're talking about. You talk about a wastewater treatment plant we're building out at the landfill. That's not free. It costs millions too. So that $100,000 goes towards the debt service for that. In the end, 20 years, we make money and save money. This energy project put the county in a good place for the next 20 years. We're doing very efficient with our energy. The cost savings and the energy reduction pays for the debt service to do the millions of dollars of work. There is no extra money. I don't know what you're talking about, to be frank. It's that simple. There is no extra money like that. You can't build multi-million-dollar facilities and not expect to pay for them. You pay for them with the energy reduction, so you pay a little less to consumers. You take that savings, you put it towards your debt service. The federal government had the IFT or something, a tax credit you could get for doing energy projects. Well, you get the money. Well, guess what you do with it? You pay for the energy project. It's not like we have that money sitting around. And on top of that, everything you described is one-time money. I've said to the board, you can kick the can down the road, but the can will someday have to be paid for. It's just that simple. I have no problem spending reserves if that's what the board decides to do. But just know, you cannot do that forever. It's just that simple.
Commissioner Kennedy?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Administrator Overton actually explained why I didn't vote for your motion tonight, because I was well aware that it has to go to pay the debt service on the project itself. It'd be beautiful if we could do that and not pay the debt service, but that's not how the world works. It's kind of like paying a mortgage. If you don't pay your mortgage, take your house. So that's why I didn't support that. Furthermore, had you have given this to me ahead of time and not read it the way you were very hard to understand, first and foremost, okay? You were saying hundreds of dollars, not millions of dollars. Your figures were off. I'm not gonna vote on something like that sprung on me last minute. And again, you were in error. It's similar to when you wanted to sell the airport, and then you found out that the revenue that went to the airport, the county wouldn't get, it would go to the FAA, right? And we found out that's not a viable option. That is why we have administration. If you have ideas, please give it to them. I'm willing to look at everything. Nobody up here wants to cut cops' jobs at all. And to say otherwise is disingenuous. So in regards to some of the comments on the fines and fees, you'll be happy to know that those were looked over not long ago, and unfortunately some were increased. So administration took a look at that, and the Board of Commissioners voted on it. And then the marijuana excise tax is in the general fund budget. It already is. And if you remember, our first year on as commissioners, when we first got the general excise tax, we funded corrections officers in the jail, and that's never stopped. I don't know if you remember that. I do.
You put it in the jail?
Mm-hmm.
No, we used it to hire 3 officers.
That's what I said. 3 corrections officers.
Yeah, I've got the meeting minutes from that.
Okay.
And
So
we used
I just feel it's important when you spring something big that you're accurate and you're on point, and tonight you weren't. Thank you.
Commissioner Duckham?
Well, to add to what Commissioner Kennedy stated, the marijuana money, yes, is in the budget already. The landfill escrow that he was gonna spend, it's held by the state till the landfill is no longer there. It's a lifetime hold by the state. When you put a landfill in, you gotta put deposit down on the acreage you use, and the state holds it in case there has to be a landfill remedy in the future. That's held by the state. I find it aggravating. I know everybody up there whistled and cheered and, hey, we got a guy that knows where the money's going. No. Go talk to him. I mean, he's wrong, okay? He's wrong. And sad you have to listen to it and get all excited. Thank you.
Any other commissioner comments? Seeing none, we have no closed session. Entertain a motion to adjourn. We have a motion and support. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Duly carried.